Let's get this shit started.
This is the Down and Dirty Dynasty Fantasy Football Podcast with your host, Nick Anderson.
What is up, Dynasty Degenerates? This is your host, Nick Anderson, with the Down and Dirty Dynasty Fantasy Football Podcast, or as you might know it, the Triple DFFP. And you guys, I've got my boy, Triple DFFP Grizz, the Fantasy Grizz, in the house today. You know, we're in a bunch of leagues together. He's a super informative piece of Dynasty knowledge, so I brought him on here to spit some hot takes with us today. What's going on,
man.
Grizz?
What's up, Nick? How's it going, man? Thanks for having me on tonight. Just happy to kind of jump on, spit a little fantasy football with you guys, and talk Dynasty.
Hell yeah. All right, so what we are going to be doing with our first segment of the show today is we're going to be doing a thing that I like to call this or that. We're going to be talking about some players that are competing on their own teams. So we're going to be going over, some in-house competitions that we're seeing play out live in front of us right now. And so without any further ado, let's get it started. What do you say?
Let's do it, man. Let's do it.
All right, so the first one we're going to be looking at comes out of the Jacksonville Jaguars, and we've got rookie Laviska Shenault against 23-year-old sensation DJ Chark. So, I'm going to give the guest the first shot on this.
Ooh.
If you were having to choose between the two of these guys, who would you go with? And I know you got love for Viska.
It's true. Money right now, I'd go Viska. I think Chark, we all thought, was going to be the Jacksonville one moving forward, but then the Jaguars went out, got themselves some Laviska Shenault, who's kind of an all-purpose weapon. He showed us that through the first few weeks, getting some runs, getting a little bit more involved in the passing game now. Just overall, I like the dynamism that he brings more than Chark in the long run. So that's where my money is. It's going to be on Shenault. Just quite frankly, he reminds me way too much of AJ Brown, and that guy's a stud. He came back last night, and it's Shenault for me all the way, as much as I love Chark.
And I do love Chark. He's one of those guys that's like one of my guys. I drafted him in the rookie draft, and so it's one of those dudes that you covet because you feel like you held on to him and you made the right decision and he popped off for me. And so with this one, it's kind of like a 1A, 1B for me. It's super, super tough. But I think I might have to go the direction that you're leaning on this, because I think that Shenault is so dynamic, and that's the thing that he brings to the table. Just like we saw Debo's stats be elevated last season by his ability to be able to run out of the backfield, get touchdowns in more unique ways than DJ Chark is capable of. I think that we're going to see that transpire more and more with Viska as he gets more comfortable in the offense.
For sure. I think people who drafted Chark in rookie drafts are still sitting with house money because they probably got him for a third, maybe a fourth. Last year, Viska went a little bit higher, I think, probably more late second, early third in your draft. So both really good players, both people I want on my teams, but give me Viska moving forward. Give me Viska.
Hell yeah, man. And he's one of those ones that's kind of crept up, kind of surprised us. I didn't anticipate him having this much of an early breakout. And I'm a little bit worried, about his durability. I hope it stays up. But as of right now, we got no complaints.
Yeah, all good so far. All systems go for Viska Shenault. He's the dude there.
Yep. Well, let's move on to our next team in the Carolina Panthers. And we have breakout sensation, another refugee from Gase Island, Robbie Anderson, against, top dog in last year's Dynasty standings, DJ Moore. So far this year, Robbie Anderson has shown himself to be the alpha in Carolina. Do you think that holds up?
Man, that's tough. The metrics darling, DJ Moore. I think in the long run, you still want DJ Moore. He's not getting those explosive plays. I think I was reading he's got a lot lower ADOT this year. And whereas Anderson, obviously, he's more of a deep threat, so he's getting those a little bit low percentage catches, but he's converting them, and he's just popping right now. So in a redraft league, sure, give me Robbie Anderson if I can get DJ Moore plus, but long term, it's got to be DJ Moore. You just think the talent's there. You just hope he continues to improve and get better. I mean, how young is that guy, or how old is DJ Moore at this point?
DJ Moore is still 23 years old, and Robbie Anderson is 27. So there's a 4-year age gap between the two of them. So for me personally, that makes all the difference. On top of the fact that, I'm kind of talking shit where I shouldn't be talking shit because Ryan Tannehill's my boy who was hindered by Adam Gase for years. But, we've seen Robbie Anderson fall off. We've seen him be less than productive in his career in the NFL. And DJ Moore hasn't been less than productive. He's just been less than expected right now. And so I've never seen that fall off from DJ Moore. So the youth, the talent, and the lack of fall off capability, I'm going DJ Moore on that one.
For sure. Some people might get tricked though, so just watch out for that. If you're in a league and you get a chance to move Anderson for a good value right now, go for it, man. Go for it.
And that's why I've said, and I think that Robbie Anderson finds himself in that area, you guys, that I'm calling the void. But in the void between a first and a second round pick, I think is where Robbie Anderson finds himself. And if you can get a first round pick for Robbie Anderson today, I'm taking it all day, especially with the talent coming up in the 21 draft.
Oh, very, very easily. I mean, if you can get a young upside player in a second, maybe would be another approach for a Robbie Anderson owner at this point. So definitely look to move if you're not contending. But if you're contending, just ride the wave, baby.
That's right. And so now we are going to move on to one that is a hot button topic after he popped on the scene, with 4 touchdowns in week 5. We've got the Pittsburgh Steelers, Chase Claypool, or Deontay Johnson. Yeah, that's right, man.
Mapletron. I mean, good Lord, the guy's a physical freak. I mean, he could probably dunk over everyone, but was that more of a product of Ben just found him and they had a good game? I mean, I remember in years past where, like a Brandon Lloyd pops for just a freak game. I mean, they drop like 30 or 40 and then they disappear. So I'd be curious to see what Claypool does the rest of the year, but I think you have to appreciate what Deontay Johnson does on a regular basis when he's healthy. Granted, the guy hasn't been staying healthy all year, had some concussion problems, but I probably have to lean Deontay just because I think he's going to be a consistent producer a little bit longer than Claypool. Who knows in terms of length, but you can't deny he's shown something special, and that's a tough one, man.
See, for me, I'm going Claypool here. Because, and I was actually talking to somebody about this earlier, and it was in the redraft format, not the dynasty format that we're talking about right here. But in my personal opinion, the way that a team should be constructed, now every team's not constructed this way, but Deontay Johnson should be, a tertiary or a flex option in your lineup. He should not be a guy that you're hanging your hat on and expecting great games out of. And so when you're looking at those lower tier options on your bench, I'm looking for the guy that has the highest ceiling. And even though I know Deontay Johnson was the talk of the town across Twitter this offseason, which seems to happen with a couple players that, sometimes don't pan out, even though everybody loved that guy in the offseason, I think that Chase Claypool has the highest ceiling and the ability to be able to outkick his coverage more than Deontay Johnson does.
I could get behind that. I mean, he's Mapletron, baby. I mean, you got to respect his freak ability and just he's a target of Ben right now. He likes him. He went back to him during the game last week, so I can't fault you for wanting to go Claypool long term here, especially when you're talking about roster construction. You're right. Deontay's a guy that you feel good about starting him as a flex, wide receiver 3. Claypool's that guy who could very well jump up and be a wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2. It's possible.
Exactly. Yep.
He's got that. Yeah, he's got that. He's got that potential
there. Yep, we got a little bit of a split there, but that is okay. So we're talking about roster construction there. For the floor, go Deontay Johnson. For the ceiling, go Claypool. And now we're going to go into one that's going to be a little bit harder for the listeners to conceptualize because we haven't seen him on the field, since week 2. We've got Courtland Sutton versus the rookie Jerry Jeudy. Now, I know you got a lot of Jeudy shade over there, okay? I know that we got a lot of Jeudy shade coming from fantasy.
Shady. Where's Jerry? It's shady over here, bud.
But so we saw Courtland Sutton last season put up 72 receptions for 1,112 receiving yards and 6 touchdowns. Now, Jerry Jeudy has been on a much slower pace than that for the start of the season, but he is a rookie, in a less than ideal situation right now. But that was the same situation that Sutton found himself in last year. So when you're looking at these two, when we look at the route running ability of Jerry Jeudy and the big bodied nature of Courtland Sutton, who are you going with long-term in Dynasty?
Man, long term, I still got to go with my boy Sutton. And the reason for that is he's already produced on a shitty team. He's already shown it. Judy, I mean, he's doing fine this year. He's definitely a good player. He's a player you want as a wide receiver too. I just don't know if that guy ever gets to like a true alpha status, wide receiver one status. He's kind of got that same Calvin Ridley path, in my opinion, where he's really good route running. Like you said, he's a good slot guy. He, quote, mossed that guy a few weeks ago. I don't know how true that is. He caught the ball with his chest.
Yeah.
But I just think Sutton, he's got the stature. He's what you want in that outside alpha receiver. He produced with the same shitty quarterback play that Judy's dealing with at a better clip. Granted, he is injured. He's out, so you got to take that into consideration. And I believe Cortland Sutton's also 25. So kind of depending on your dynasty window, if you think you're looking pretty good here this year, next year, I'd shoot for the moon with Sutton. But if you're doing the long-term play, you might want to lean Judy just for a little bit more stability as like a wide receiver too, because Sutton could fall off quicker than Judy, I would say.
Especially, and when you look at the the nature of Judy's play versus the nature of Sutton's play, we see those big body guys, the jump ball, the contested ball players fade faster in the NFL than we do with those slot, move wide receivers. And I think that you're exactly right when you talk about the Calvin Ridley path. And another one that comes to mind is Stephon Diggs. But we saw Stephon Diggs never truly reach his potential when he was in Minnesota, not until he went to the Bills this season and is getting peppered, 12, 13 times a game, that he's actually meeting, what we were hoping for his talent profile. And so I worry that Judy, especially with the weapons like Fant and Cortland Sutton out there in Denver with a lackluster quarterback in Drew Lock, he's never truly going to reach the potential that he could if he were in a different system.
For sure. And one thing to consider, though, is, the age of where they'll be by the time their second deal rolls around. So like you said, with Diggs, Judy might not be a Bronco by the time he gets a chance to be a true one. So he's going to be 25 on his second deal, where Cortland Sutton, I think, still has, a year after this year. So he's got a couple more. So he'll be 27, at that age apex, moving on to his second team. So like I said, if you're looking for right now help, not right now, next year, Sutton's on AR, but if you're looking for kind of next year, I'd be shooting for Sutton, because you can probably get him cheap right now. You can get him cheaper than Judy. The Judy owners, they love Jerry Judy and they want an arm and a leg for him. So, long term, I'd probably lean Judy, but within the next year, give me Sutton all day.
Hell yeah. And so that's a good bit of insight right there, is be looking at Sutton as a buy opportunity right now. There's a desperate owner out there that might take, like 2 seconds for a Sutton. I mean, there's somebody out there right now who Chase Claypool just popped off the map. Somebody thinks that he is the next coming of Jesus out there. And you might be able to turn Chase Claypool in a third for Cortland Sutton. People are that ravenous, when it comes to these breakout games. And so just be constantly thinking about that with knowing the owners in your league.
I mean, after that game, you could probably even do a straight up swap with somebody if they're that big of a believer in Claypool for Sutton right now.
And I would take that all day and twice on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go on to our next team in the Minnesota Vikings. We've got a lot of rookies on this list because, they're unproven commodities. So we've got to see how they match up against their senior opponents. So at the Minnesota Vikings, we are looking at Justin Jefferson or Adam Thielen, okay? Thielen finds himself at 30 years old, and Justin Jefferson, a young buck at 21, 22. But he has shown himself with multiple 100-yard games, yet Thielen's getting the touchdowns, getting the consistency that we've always seen out of this scrappy guy in Adam Thielen. So who are you taking in Dynasty right now?
This one's pretty much a slam dunk, Justin Jefferson. Dynasty scope, the guy's 21, and he's broken out as a rookie, which is a huge indicator for future success for wide receivers. Not too long ago, we were on the track of, if you don't break out in 3 years, then you're probably a bust. And now all these wide receivers, they're coming out their rookie year and just balling out. So easy money. Give me Justin Jefferson. I love Thielen. He's a good win now move, but he's not long for the league, I wouldn't say. He's depending on his contract, he might not be with Minnesota too much longer. I haven't looked at his contract recently, but
I think he's still got quite a bit of money on the table.
Money in years. I mean, yeah, but long term, it's just give me the youth on that one, especially with Thielen being 30 years old. It's kind of a miracle that those guys at 30 years old are still putting up big numbers, because this year especially we saw a lot of the older receivers. I mean, they just died. Julio's gone, AJ Green's gone, Marvin Jones didn't even show up to practice. I mean, these guys, I don't know if it's the COVID year and kind of I think it might have had something to do with the limited offseason where they just didn't get their time to ramp up. But
Right.
they have not done much. When I say they, the older receivers, they've been not as contributing.
I absolutely agree. And, while I have a bunch of love for Thielen, he is one of my guys. I've got to go with Justin Jefferson on that. I mean, we saw a 93% catch rate in college, and he's done nothing to deter us from believing that that's, in the realm of possibility in the NFL. Maybe not 93%, but he's got hands like glue. He runs routes with an exceptional pace. I mean, everything about Justin Jefferson is pointing up. So we're going Jefferson over Adam Thielen, and let's move on to our next team in the Chicago Bears. And this is another one that is, like once irrelevant, older man coming in and showing us something versus a young, absolutely unproven player, and Jimmy Graham versus Cole Kmet.
Did you
take on this one?
Well, did you know Jimmy Graham used to play basketball?
I did not know that.
I don't know.
Box out ability, high point ability, maybe? I don't know. Nothing about that.
He can do that. Man, this one's tough because Jimmy Graham has got one foot in the grave, basically, and Cole Kmet is like a newborn child who hasn't even had his first diaper put on yet. Like, the guy's got no snaps, and I can't remember how many tight ends the Bears have. At one point, I think they had like 5 or 6. I mean, they just had a roster full of dudes, and Kmet coming out, I think a lot of people liked him just because of his athletic ability, and they thought, he's a good blocker, so he's got a chance to get on the field. I don't like Kmet that much. I would probably just say give me another year of Jimmy Graham, because I don't know if you want to sit around and wait for Kmet to turn into something. I'd rather just go find a different tight end than sit and wait on Cole Kmet personally. I think you have a lot better options. I think you have better options.
So I love finding the diamonds in the rough in the tight end position. I'm currently pressing the coal right now on my Irv Smith shares, okay? And so I love finding these young tight ends. And while Kmet wasn't my favorite tight end in this draft class, we're going to talk about one of his counterparts, Adam Troutman, down the line. But while he wasn't my favorite tight end in this class, you have to respect his collegiate production and his athletic profile. And so when we're looking at the usage that Jimmy Graham is getting in Chicago, it makes me excited about the future that we could possibly see for Kmet. Because Jimmy Graham is getting the end zone work, the red zone work. He's getting targets that we haven't really seen since shit like Adam Shaheen in Chicago,
Right.
I mean, we haven't really seen anybody be able to produce out there. And so now that I'm actually seeing it, it gets me excited about the future. And in a team that I'm playing, if I built the team, Jimmy Graham wouldn't be my best tight end. He would be my secondary option. So I would be willing to take the time to be able to cultivate a talent like Kmet. So I'm going Kmet on that one.
Yeah, and looking at the depth chart real quick, you got Jimmy Graham at 1 for the Bears. Demetrius Harris, journeyman tight end. He's not going to block Kmet, I don't think. And then you got Kmet sitting there at the 3rd spot with a couple guys behind him too. So the road could open up very quickly for him in the future. So if you can get him for free, that's a guy, go out, shoot a couple fifths at somebody, see if they want it, or just really any offer could probably get Kmet moving from the Kmet owner at this point, because he's done literally nothing.
When it's always the package deals for me, it's always throwing them in as an add-on, as a sneaky upside play when you're making a trade that otherwise would go through, and you just slide him in on the bottom. Just slide him in on the bottom.
Just, hey, give me a little Colt Kmet back there. No big deal. Just I need another guy. Trying to fill a spot here. Appreciate you.
And if you were in tight end premium leagues, Jimmy Graham is an ideal trade candidate right now. He is 33 years old, and like Grizz said, he's got one foot in the grave right now. So you need to be taking this early season production and turning it into future picks. So we'll go on to the next team that we've got in the Cleveland Browns, and we've got my boy Kareem Hunt versus Nick Chubb.
This is I know this is this or that, but how about Por qué no los dos? Why not both of them, maybe? I mean, they're both really fucking good. And we've seen that Hunt caps Chubb a little bit. But I mean, when they were both on the field, they were both producing high end RB2 numbers. And then I think Chubb's, with his injury, he's allowed Hunt to come in and just basically steal the show for the time being. But I want them both, and you got them both in a league that we're in together, which is I do. It's fun to see.
And so when I'm looking at it, I agree with you. I want them both. I want them both, but. I wrote an article for Dynasty Nerds about this, and I know it's going to be a little bit of a spicy take, but Kareem Hunt scores. It's like 1.3 fantasy points per touch in comparison to Nick Chubb's 0.66 fantasy points last season. And so we've seen this window of opportunity open up for Kareem Hunt, where he has the ability to be the feature back under a Kevin Stefanski run offense, a new coach, a new regime, a new ability to be able to see how the timeshare is going to go. And I'm worried that when Nick Chubb comes back into this, they're going to see Nick Chubb for what he is, an amazing running back, an elite, one of the most pure running backs in the NFL right now, but not nearly as dynamic as Kareem Hunt is. And so I think that in the future, we might see the touches leaning a little bit more in Kareem's direction based off of the coaching scheme that we saw in, Minnesota, and the ability of the coach to see firsthand what Kareem Hunt can do with an exclusive backfield.
I think you're right on point there. I mean, the only thing to keep in mind is Hunt's time with the Browns might be very short-lived. He's got a 2-year deal, so only another year left on that. I don't see Nick Chubb going anywhere. I'm not worried about the injury. The only thing is Kareem Hunt has proved he can do it in any offense. He did it with the Chiefs. He's doing it with the Browns. The guy's just #good at football. So it just depends on your outlook. If you're going for a win now, take some Hunt. If you're trying to rebuild and you get Chubb off somebody who's maybe lost a couple starters and you can help them out, maybe try and swing low on that one, probably not going to happen just because the Hunt or the Chubb owners usually love the guy. So it's going to be a tough trade to get done, but gosh, give them to me both. I mean, I want them both.
All right, so we're going to do 3 more this or that players, then we're going to move on to a new segment. So one of the last 3 is Henry Ruggs or Bryan Edwards. So we have seen Ruggs come in this season and have a blow-up game against the Kansas City Chiefs, but have injury and lackluster performance outside of that. He's had 6 receptions for 177 receiving yards and a touchdown to Edwards' 5 receptions for 99 receiving yards. Edwards has struggled with injury as well. When we were looking at preseason rankings, we were seeing that the consensus was Henry Ruggs above Edwards. But after the draft, after the season started, it started to change the tide. Edwards was all the talk of the town on Twitter. So I ask you, Grizz, who would you rather have?
Oh, boy. I love me some Henry Ruggs. Don't get me wrong, but I got to go with Bryan Edwards here. I think he's just got that true alpha upside. The guy was a beast at South Carolina. He was a beast when Debo was there. He was a beast his senior year. If that guy didn't have his injury throughout the draft process, most people said he would have been a first-round pick as well. I think his upside and just being kind of a little bit more of a possession receiver, get more targets than Ruggs. Obviously, Ruggs can take one to the house at any point in time. But for fantasy purposes, I've never been a fan of building around those types of guys. I like the more consistent production from a Bryan Edwards type. I think he could very easily, and this might be a stretch, I think he could very easily turn into a Devontae Adams type player where the guy's he's good all over the field. He can do the jump ball. He can do the slant routes. He might be, Mr. Slant like Mike Thomas. I think he's just going to be a stud. But you're right. He's battled with injuries. So now would be a good buying opportunity for some Bryan Edwards. Long-term, give me Bryan Edwards.
And see, I am having a change of feeling here, I'm going with that instead of this is what I'm doing. Because I used to be all over Bryan Edwards, and I still am, don't get me wrong. But I'm so excited. I got to see firsthand from the stands at Arrowhead where we got our asses handed to us by the fucking Raiders. I got to see first.
You got a little vividness bias happening for you. Like,
that's right.
That Ruggs guy's fast.
But, man, I got to see what I wanted to see out of Ruggs. I was never certain if he was going to have one of those games. I thought he might have been a better football player than a fantasy football player. But now that I've seen it firsthand and I've seen what the ability is, I'm going Henry Ruggs on this. I think he's dynamic. He's lightning fast. He's great after the catch. He's great at not stopping his speed on the catch. Everything about this guy says that he has the ability to be able to put it into play. It's just a matter of if he would, and he did. So I'm going Ruggs on this one.
Fair approach on that.
That's right. So let's go on to our next one here. We go to Los Angeles with the Rams. We've got Bobby Trees, Robert Woods, or Cooper Kupp. Which one are you going with, G?
Oh, Bobby Trees or Cooper Kupp. Man, I think they're both really good. This is another one where I guess if you let age play the factor, then you're going Kupp. But I think we all know Bobby Woods is the one in LA. There's a lot of talk over the last couple of years. Is Robert Woods really a one? Is he just a wide receiver two? No, he's getting the targets. He's getting the production. I think I'd probably just go with Robert Woods. He feels like the kind of wide receiver who's going to just glide gracefully into his late stage career, late 20s, early 30s. I think he's just going to be one of those consistent producers. And when you think about injuries and kind of the longevity of players, Cooper Kupp, he's had a few concussions. He's torn his ACL. I mean, he's not got a clean sheet of health, if you will. So I probably lean Bobby Trees on this one.
And so I have always been a Cooper Kupp fan. I've just rooted for the guy because when he's out there and he's playing well, he plays amazing. But the more that I've paid attention to the Rams offense this year and the more that I've seen Robert Woods excel, and I've seen, conversely, Cooper Kupp have these drop-off games. And Robert Woods has them too, so don't get me wrong. But I just think that Robert Woods is the steady Eddie, number one out there that you want on your roster, even though it's not sexy to me.
It's not sexy at all. And the thing is, trade value-wise, people want Kupp. He's more highly regarded in trade, so you can get more for Kupp. You could probably, as a Kupp owner, go to a Robert Woods owner and say, hey, I'll give you a Kupp for Woods in a second, Woods in a third. You're going to make money on that one because Robert Woods isn't going anywhere. He's got a contract with the Rams for quite a while. The guy's a one, and he's a sneaky one at that. He's the most disrespected wide receiver one there is out there.
And not by the same playing style per se, but he kind of reminds me of a guy that took me to a lot of places in fantasy football and Marquise Colston. How he was just kind of just getting it for you every week, just a grinder. And that's what I love, and that's why I'm slowly but surely becoming a Bobby Trees convert. So I'm coming over to the dark side. I'm passing on.
Come on in. Come on in. The water's wet. I mean, you don't hear anything about Bobby Trees talking shit to the DBs on his team or his coach. He doesn't get mad if they say, oh, you run his slants. Like, he doesn't care. Bob just wants to play some football and kick ass and take names.
That's right. He doesn't throw footballs at people when they miss a defensive play on him. He doesn't do that. He's not a bad guy. He's a good guy.
Real good. Yeah, don't you want to roster good dudes on your team anyway? So, I mean, yeah, take some Bobby Woods.
Great guy. All right, so let's go on to our final this or that. And this one is a nail biter, boys and girls. It is a tough one, and I still don't know what my answer is. We are going to San Francisco to talk to the 49ers and see who we're coming out with in Deebo Samuel or Brandon Ayuk. Grant, who you going with?
Oh, man, this one's tough. We saw Deebo do it last year. We saw him produce. Now he's got the injury bug. He had the injury bug in college. To my knowledge, Brandon Ayuk doesn't really have any injury history to be aware of. The guy has shown us he's a baller after the catch. To me, they're very similar players, but I just think Ayuk has a little bit more long speed, has just a touch more electricity behind him. And for the reasons of health, age, and that he's just a little bit more explosive, I got to go Ayuk on this one. And I do love Deebo. I think, they're both going to be wide receiver twos for fantasy purposes. So you can really flip a coin in that terms, but through the dynasty lens, you want to take the age if you can, and you want to take the explosive rookie if you can. Going Ayuk.
That's fair. And, I have came around to Brandon Ayuk. I watched a lot of his tape because I realized going into the draft this year that he was one of the guys that I had a blind spot for. I hadn't watched a lot of film on Brandon Ayuk, and so I went back and I made sure that I was grinding on his film. And the one thing that's the difference between the two of them is I think that Deebo's a little bit more of a dog, a little bit more of a junkyard dog. than Brandon Ayuk is, and that's what I love in my guys, you know? I want somebody that's going to get gritty out there. I want somebody that's going to take the ball out of the backfield and jam it down somebody's throat because they're that dynamic that they don't need to go on every passing route. And so for me, I understand that we got the injury. I understand Debo's a little bit older. But I'm telling you right now, I'm going with Debo because he's a little bit of a dog.
That's bold, Cotton. Let's see if that plays out for you.
That's right.
Yeah, I got to stick with Ayuk on that. I didn't like him coming out either. Metrics-wise, and that's kind of what I lean towards on the prospect evaluations, he didn't show anything. So, I mean, the guy was kind of a surprise first-round draft pick for the 49ers. So, I gotta go draft capital there.
There we go.
Give me Ayuk.
All right, so that concludes our this or that segment. So we're going to be moving on now. We're going to be talking about the top. Go ahead.
Can we pause real quick? I see one here that we may have glazed over. How about an Amari Cooper or a CD Lamb?
Okay. All right, let's talk about it. Let's rap about it. Because I'm going, me personally, I have jettisoned CD Lamb to the pinnacle. Not the pinnacle, but the heights of my dynasty wide receiver rankings. He, in my opinion, is up above. He's 7'6" in dynasty wide receiver rankings for me. And even coming into this season before the emergence of these young rookie wide receivers, I had Amari down at like 9'10", somewhere around there. I understand that he's still young. I understand that he's done it. I also understand that he's done it more consistently this year than he's ever done it before. But I think that CD has the talent. He's got the youth. He's got the 88 that was anointed on him in Dallas. And so I'm going CD Lamb. What you got for me, though?
Easy. CD Lamb, the only reason I wanted to bring this up, CD Lamb, before Dak's injury, you got to put the asterisks, before his injury, the dude was on pace to set the receiving record for rookies. He was, above Anquan Bolden. I mean, all the studs. This guy is going to be it. If you have him on your dynasty teams, just thank the dynasty gods because you have a real one. If you probably can't get him in a trade, just be real honest with you. Nobody's moving CD Lamb, but that guy.
Just remember that he was being drafted as wide receiver, as the 7th or 8th pick in rookie drafts. 6th, 7th, or 6th or 7th, right around there. That was his draft capital in rookie drafts. God, we're stupid. We're just dumb.
Silly. We went a little hard on the rookie running backs this year, didn't we?
We did.
Went a little hard, but
I went a little hard on Keyshawn Vaughn. I didn't take him over Lamb, but I went a little hard on him.
You don't need to bring that one up. We'll let that one sit to the side.
So let's move on to, we're talking about the top dogs. Okay, we're talking about the guys that are in the lead in their respective position at this respective status point, okay? So we're saying we're doing sustainable or nah. All right, so we're going to start this off with the rushing leader in the running back room right now. Dalvin Cook is about 100 yards ahead of the number 2 running back in rushing yards. He has 489 rushing yards, and he's above all other running backs in TDs by 2. He's got 7 touchdowns. Is that sustainable or nah?
Well, if the guy didn't get hurt last week, I'd say it's probably sustainable because, I mean, he's the dude in Minnesota. Alexander Madison stands. They like him. They think he's going to be a thing. He's not. The guy's Jordan Howard 2.0, in my opinion. But it can't happen now, obviously, because if you're not playing games, you're going to be behind a couple games. There's no way he can continue that pace. But barring that injury, I think he could have done it. I mean, Dalvin's a beast. The guy could just find running lanes. He also gets the very valuable targets. I mean, it's possible that he could have done it, but
I think that he's only going to miss one game, though. Right now, that's all that they're projecting him for. Is they said that they weren't sure if he was going to be back this week or not. They said they were certainly not convinced that they were going to hold him over for the bye. And so I'm still going to say nah, but it's a tentative one because I still think that with the pace that he's set right now at 100 yards above the next guy, if he misses a game, 100 yards and 2 TDs, not every running back's going to get that. Not even the top dogs are going to get that on any given week. And so I think he's built himself enough of a cushion that he could, regain that pace. And so you know what? Fuck it. I'm going sustainable.
Ooh,
sustainable.
Spicy.
He's going to end the year as either the touchdown leader or the rushing leader.
Yeah. Cook's a beast. What more is there to say on that one?
That's right. So let's go on to our next one. I think this one's going to be pretty easy here, okay? But Alvin Kamara leads all running backs in reception yards by 190 receiving yards. He has 395, and he's tied for receiving touchdowns with Chris Carson and Kareem Hunt at 3. Is that sustainable or nah?
Without a doubt, that is sustainable. With Thomas being out, we don't know exactly when he's coming back with his off-the-field shenanigans that he's got going on, like we talked about. Kamara is the Saints offense, and he is king dump-off catcher. The guy is just going to eat the rest of the year. He's probably going to finish his fantasy RB1 this year. I mean, who's going to catch him?
Right, especially with the value of receiving, receptions. We know that they have an increased point value in fantasy football. And so with the ability that he has catching out of the backfield, I mean, I don't think that there's any question that he is a top contender to finish as as a wide receiver or running back 1. Can't talk.
Faux show. He's got it. He's in. Locked in. RB1. Rest
I will
of season.
say, though, that I think that Kareem Hunt is going to give him a run for his money in receiving touchdowns. Receiving touchdowns, I think that he is going to give him a run for his money.
I could see it. I don't think Chris Carson is going to keep that pace up, personally. Carson, he's in the good offense with Seattle, but I just don't see the guy as a real pass-catching threat. But not to say he's not going to get the occasional dump off, but yeah, it's Kamara all day.
We all saw him bobble that one in the end zone last season.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the wide receivers. DeAndre Hopkins leads all wide receivers in receiving yards with 528. Is that sustainable or nah?
Oh, yeah. Sustainable. I mean, what other wide receiver is getting fed the ball like DeAndre Hopkins is? There's, a lot of talk over the years about this kind of the thinning out, the flattening of the curve of the wide receiver 1 position where it's getting spread around more. Your true alphas aren't really out there. But this season, we have our Lord and Savior, DeAndre Hopkins, catching all the passes from Kyler Murray. And I don't know how he doesn't keep that up, barring injury.
And I said that going into this season. People were talking about a possible fall off because wide receivers transitioning teams. But I said, fuck, DeAndre Hopkins transitioned quarterbacks so many times when he was in Texas with the Texans that this is just par for the course. This is normal for him.
Yeah, I mean, it's a normal thing to think anytime you change teams, you're going to drop production just because of a new system, new quarterback. And that's what I thought coming into the season. I thought he'd have a pretty good year, but not like Hopkins of years past. But the guy is just balled out, and he is the one to have. Yeah. Give me Hopkins. Yeah. Sustainable.
All right, so we'll move on to the touchdowns out of the wide receiver position. Mike Evans and Adam Thielen are tied for the lead in receiving touchdowns. They lead everybody else by 1. They've got 6 touchdowns apiece. Is that sustainable?
I'd say it's probably sustainable for the goal line wide receiver, Mike Evans. The guy is just eating down there. I mean, Tom Brady sees him. He's the tallest guy on the field. He's like, yeah, I'll just chuck it up to you. Good luck. I mean, Evans is going to continue to do that. And we know touchdowns are super varied from week to week. I mean, he's just showing us if you're getting the targets in the end zone, it's going to continue to happen. Thielen, on the other hand, I'm not as confident that he'll keep that pace up. I don't really believe in the Vikings offense as much as Tampa Bay. He's probably going to drop down. I mean, I guess you could argue without Cook they might pass more, but then you could also argue that they might be less efficient as a whole across the offense without Cook there. So I think Evans,
and we've got the emergence of Justin Jefferson out there, which you are going to see the return of Chris Godwin. But Chris Godwin is that possession wide receiver, and Evans has shown that he's getting the red zone work.
It's true. I mean, I haven't seen him throw a lot of slants and that sort of thing to the end zone. I think Mike is his first read there, so that helps him out quite a bit. And they're playing plays for him there. So Evans, he's going to keep it up. Thielen, I'll be surprised if he's still in the top 10 in touchdowns by the end of the year.
Agreed. So let's move on to the easiest one of the night, even easier than Alvin Kamara. Travis Kelce leads all tight ends in receiving yards by plus 120 receiving yards. He's got 405 on the season. Is that sustainable or not? It's sustainable, and I don't care what you say about it.
I was going to say, that's nasty. Plus 120 over all tight ends. And the tight end position is always a dumpster fire if you don't have anyone in the top three. So Kelsey, yeah, easy, sustainable.
Easy money there. All right, so let's move on to the next in the tight end position. Mark Andrews and Jonnu Smith lead all tight ends in receiving touchdowns. They've got a gap of 1 on everybody else. They've got 5 touchdowns this season. Is that sustainable or nah? I'm going to give my answer on this first because you know what? I'm going to make a hot take, and I'm going to say that Jonnu is going to emerge, and he will be the touchdown leader this season over Marcus Zeralius Andrews.
Is that the guy's middle name?
No. Absolutely not.
Yeah, I don't know. I could see Jonnu doing it. The Titans are hot. Tannehill, you showed me stats earlier. He's basically playing at the same pace as Patrick Mahomes.
Yep.
Yardage-wise, touchdown-wise, through the last 14
more
games.
More touchdowns. Put some respect on his name.
There you go. More touchdowns. I mean, I see no reason why Jonnu can't continue it. I personally don't see Andrews keeping that up, mainly for the fact that I think the chink in the armor of the Ravens and the shine's kind of wearing off on Lamar, and people are starting to realize that the dude's a freaking threat on the ground the minute he scrambles, but he doesn't keep his eyes downfield. So they're not passing extremely well right now. The passing game doesn't excite me. Granted, Mark Andrews is the only exciting passing game option there outside of Marquise Brown, but gosh, they love to run the ball so much at the goal line. I got to say it's not sustainable for Andrews, and I agree. Jonnu Smith, he's going to keep it up.
All right, we'll move on to the next in the quarterback position. With Dak out, we've got Josh Allen leading all quarterbacks in passing yards by 90 yards with 1,591 passing yards. Is that sustainable or nah?
That's tough. I like Josh Allen. He's having a really good year. I think he came out and kind of proved that he's not just a project quarterback and he's not just a scramble guy with no deep ball accuracy, but I don't think it's sustainable. I don't have a great answer why. I don't believe in the talent of Josh Allen as much as some of the other folks do right now, but I just don't see him leading the league in passing yards by the end of the year. I just think with the limited offseason, they might have been getting away with some plays that would have otherwise been shut down. I just have to think there's going to be someone else who's going to lead the league in yards like Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah. And so I would have said that there is a chance for it to be sustainable if I wouldn't have seen what transpired on Tuesday Night Football.
Mm-hmm.
The way that he looked on Tuesday night playing against, a good, not great Tennessee defense and secondary, made me nervous for what's to come for him. I'm not saying that he's going to shit the bed for the rest of the season, but I certainly think that there's a chance that we could see a reduction in this efficiency, and we could see an increase in the efficiency of other players. For example, Aaron Rodgers and Ryan Tannehill right now are both one game behind Josh Allen because of buys and COVID games. And so I think that he's leading the league right now, but I think that he could get outpaced very, very soon.
Yeah, and that's just in terms of yards. I mean, for fantasy purposes, if you got Josh Allen, you're a happy camper. I mean, you got a QB1 for probably next to nothing last year or early this year. So just enjoy the ride while it lasts, because I don't know when that train's getting shut down.
Hell yeah. So let's move on to the next classification in our quarterback challenge. Russell Wilson leads all QBs in passing touchdowns, and he's got a hefty spread on it with 5 touchdowns ahead of the next. He's got 19 touchdowns on the season. Sustainable or not?
It's sustainable because the guy's touchdown rate is like 10%. It might even be higher than 10%. It's just otherworldly, his touchdown rate. I think league average year over year, it's right around like that 5 to 7 mark for touchdown rates for quarterbacks. Russ is just cooking, and you got to be happy for the guy that he's finally getting the chance to just chuck it. And I think a big part of that is my boy DK Metcalf. He's popping out. He's rising up the ranks, and he's putting people in body bags. So you got to enjoy the ride on that one.
Mr. Unlimited.
He's unlimited. He ain't going to be stopped.
So sustainable on
For
Russell
sure.
Wilson. So let's move on to the last classification we've got. We got Kyler Murray leading all quarterbacks in rushing yards by 60 rushing yards. He's got 296, and he leads all quarterbacks in rushing touchdowns by 1. He's got 5 touchdowns. Is that sustainable or nah?
Probably. The dude's just like a little rocket running around out there. I mean, he's scrambling on a lot of plays. He's not passing the ball downfield a whole lot, so I think that's contributing to why he's probably not seeing stuff downfield, so he's just scrambling, or if it's just the pressure's getting to him. So he's going to keep running this year, I think, and he likes doing it. He's good at it. He's obviously first in rushing yards for quarterbacks. The touchdowns, I don't know if that's sustainable, but he's probably going to lead all quarterbacks in rushing this year. So first part, yes, it's sustainable. He's going to get the yards. Not so sure on the touchdowns. I think Lamar might have something to say about that.
Fair enough. And I would agree on the rushing yards because, and especially because, they've started to utilize some more dynamic players in their offense, like your boy Andy Isabella. If you can get those field stretchers out there and then make them pay the respect to DeAndre Hopkins that he's due, it opens up just gashing running lanes for a guy like Kyler Murray.
Oh, without a doubt. You gotta respect what Andy Isabella's doing out there, just stretching the shit out of that field.
Oh yeah, just that fucking fields,
white lightning, just stretching it. So
that finishes up our sustainable or nah segment. And just as an added bonus at the end of this, I'm going to give you guys my 4 positional league winners. Guys that you know might not have popped off like you want them to at the start of the season, or they might have, but that I think you could trade for right now, and they could potentially win you a league because of their perceived value and what they have to come for the rest of the season. So, Grant, you got any ideas on this? Let's go at wide receiver. Who do you got at wide receiver?
I see who you got listed here. League winners from a redraft focus. If you can get your hands on, oh shit, who could you get? I mean, like a Michael Gallup. He's not a league winner, but he's so cheap. He's somebody who could come in and help you out if you're hurting at wide receiver. Your acquisition cost.
We just talked about Michael Gallup on this and the acquisition cost versus the reset button that they just got with Andy Dalton.
Yeah, I mean, the target volume was spread so evenly with Dalton. I think he's just like wide receiver agnostic. He doesn't give a shit. He just throws it to whoever's open. He could be a guy, especially if there's an injury that might happen to Amari. We love the guy, but he's had his bugs in the past. So if you could get your hands on a Michael Gallup at a reasonable cost, I think he could really help you out in that wide receiver 2 position, wide receiver 3 position, giving you some wide receiver 1 weeks.
I like that. And so my wide receiver league winner is T. Higgins. You know, we saw A.J. Green begging for the trade on the sideline. He wants to get traded. He hasn't been productive. We've seen him get a mass amount of targets. And eventually they're going to realize, Joe Burrow is going to realize that the targets that you throw to A.J. Green, holy shit, you can give those targets to T. Higgins and he'll catch them. It's a crazy idea. It's novel as fuck, but I'm telling you that by the end of the season, T. Higgins is going to be the target monster in Cincinnati, and he will win you a league.
And it was just so depressing to watch Green kind of pull up on that route last week. The guy, he's obviously not there. He's ready to go. He's ready to leave. He wants to go somewhere else. Where? Who the hell knows? Who cares? He's old as shit. Get him out of here. But T. Higgins, you're right. That dude is gonna eat once AJ Green's gone, and it might not even take AJ Green leaving.
Yep, I agree. So let's move on to the running back position. You got a league winner at running back?
Yeah, real easy one. Coming off an injury, Cam Akers. Believe in the talent, believe in the player. Darrell Henderson, he's good. He's fun to watch, but I think Akers was getting the bulk of the carries before his injury, so he's got a real chance to just pop right back in and start really blowing up for your team. So if you can get him cheap, go for it. Definitely a Cam Akers account here.
Well, and Henderson last week actually was outproduced by Akers. He just got the bulk of the fantasy points because he got the touchdowns. And eventually, Henderson doesn't do red zone rushing better than Akers does. He, in my opinion, doesn't do anything better than Akers does, and that will eventually swing in Cam's favor by the end of the season.
Well, he's better at running into the backs of his linemen, so
very true.
I'll give him that.
And so mine is going to be in the same vein, and I believe that DeAndre Swift can be a redraft league winner for you this year. Adrian Peterson has been blowing up at the start of the season. I've been nothing but impressed with what he's doing. I think he still might be on pace for a 1,000-yard season. But DeAndre Swift has been that consistent, steady Eddie guy behind the curtain, scoring on receptions, getting end zone work. He's also getting the rushing, but he's not getting nearly enough. And if they make that transition from the old bull to the young buck, that's going to be everything that you wanted for DeAndre Swift. So hold on to him, trade for him, whatever you got to do. And people aren't coveting him right now in redraft.
Especially not in redraft. And the thing to keep in mind with Swift is he's getting, 5, maybe 8 touches a game, which is criminal. Matt Patricia needs to be shipped off to Africa or just somewhere far away from football, because I don't think that guy realizes what he has in DeAndre Swift, because his points per touch is insane. The dude's super efficient, so get him on your team. He will help you win this year.
Exactly. I am in full agreement. So let's move on to our tight end league winner. You got one for us, Grin? Or you want me to go with mine?
Go ahead. Guys, sorry, I don't have a tight end league winner. I don't maybe off the top, Robbie Tonyan. If you can get some Big Bob Tonyan, go for it. It's just such a dumpster fire this year, as it is every year. Go get you some Big Bob Ton.
And actually, I do we're about a week late on the Big Bob Ton, but I think that is definitely a league winner right there if you picked him up off of waivers or draft.
Yeah.
But my league winner is going to be a guy who finally got some of the respect, a monicum of the respect that he is due. And it is Irv Smith in Minnesota. He got 5 targets last week, caught 4 of them for 64 receiving yards. And I'm hoping that this is the catalyst. This is the ember to spark the flame that is Irv Smith. The guy is great. He is Evan Ingram without the injuries. He's what we always wanted him to be, and an offense that pulls the coverage away with guys like Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson. And so I'm hoping that this will be the start of something good for the future of Irv Smith. And if you can get him right now, you can pick him up off waivers right now and stash him, and he might bring you profitable outcomes in the future.
I like it. All
right. And then the last league winner is at quarterback. You already know what I'm going to say. It's my boy Ryan Tannehill. There's still disrespect on this man's name, even though he put up a 36-point week this week. If you can trade somebody who has a higher perceived value than Ryan Tannehill right now, or package a quarterback and somebody else, do it, because I'm telling you, Ryan Tannehill is on a better 14-game pace than Patrick Mahomes has had in the last 14 games. Ryan Tannehill hasn't had his full offense together since week 2. He will eventually get Corey Davis back. Once you've got Jonnu cooking, you've got Derrick Henry running out of the backfield, A.J. Brown, Corey Davis out there, Adam Humphries, little scrappy Adam Humphries. All that stuff means that Ryan Tannehill is going to be, in my opinion, a top 7 finisher by the end of the season, and he's going to win leagues. So get your shares of Ryan Tannehill.
A Super Bowl, but I like it.
I
like it.
Points per game, I think he's 6 or 5 right now. 6 or 5.
That's really good. I don't have one. I would just say stream your quarterbacks. But if you get Tannehill off waivers, which you might be able to, do it now.
Hell yeah, boys. Well, hey, Grizz, thank you very much for coming on with me tonight. It was an awesome show. I liked everything you had to say. Got any words of wisdom for him before we part?
Appreciate you having me on, man. Nothing other than make a decision now for your teams. Are you going for it, or are you rebuilding? Because, week 5, week 6, it's when you got to start deciding, and especially in a COVID year, if you're even thinking about rebuilding, do it now. Ship people off before the season just blows up in our faces. So just make that decision of where you're going to go.
Hell yeah, man. All right, you guys. Well, thanks for tuning in. I hope you like what you had to say. But if you don't, fuck it, because I'm drunk and he's not.
So yeah.